The morning of December 24, 1971, Lima International Airport was alive with the chaotic warmth that only Christmas Eve could bring. The terminal echoed with overlapping voices, families reuniting, last-minute travelers racing through gates, and flight attendants making polite announcements that went mostly unheard. Wreaths and tinsel lined the walls. Outside the vast glass windows, a thick blanket of gray clouds rolled in from the east, casting a dull, metallic hue across the tarmac. Among the crowd were 17-year-old Isabelle Kraus and her mother, Clara, standing close together, clutching their boarding passes and two small bags. Their final destination, Valverde, a humid frontier town bordering the vast, untamed Amazon rainforest. It was not just a holiday visit. They were returning to the Jungle Research Outpost, Tropicana Station, where Isabelle had spent much of her childhood. Her father, Dr. Ernst Kraus, a respected zoologist, had already been there for several weeks conducting fieldwork. The plan was simple: get there in time for Christmas and spend it as a family, surrounded by jungle, silence, and stars. But finding a flight to Valverde during the holidays was anything but simple. The airport was overwhelmed, and nearly all commercial flights were fully booked. After several failed attempts and hours of waiting, they managed to secure two last-minute seats on Aerovista Flight 508, one of the few remaining routes flying that day. The airline was known locally as the Gamble Line. It had a troubled history: mechanical failures, outdated aircraft, and a disturbing number of safety incidents, some fatal. Clara hesitated. Her husband had warned her about this airline, but it was the only way they could get there before Christmas. As they boarded the Lockheed Electra L-188A, the mood was tense but masked by holiday cheer. The flight attendants wore red pins shaped like bells. Children pressed their faces against the oval windows, staring at the brooding sky. Isabelle and her mother were seated near the rear of the cabin, in row 19, next to a window on the left side. Through that window, Isabelle saw it, a towering wall of thunderclouds in the distance. It didn't look like weather. It looked like something ancient and alive. Black columns of vapor rising like smoke from a battlefield. Occasional flashes of lightning crawled horizontally through the clouds, silent and jagged. It was a living storm, stretching across the horizon, swollen with power and fury. Most commercial flights that day. 25 minutes into the flight, as the aircraft crossed the Andes and descended slightly toward the lush lowlands of eastern Peru, the sky turned violent. The Electra began to shake. At first it was light, a few jolts, a rattle of trays. Then came the violent lurches. People screamed. Oxygen masks dropped but didn't deploy. Luggage flew across the aisles, hitting the ceiling, raining down like confetti from hell. Through it all, Isabelle sat frozen. Her mother clutched her hand with sudden force. "This is the end," Clara whispered, not panicked, just certain. Then a flash, so bright it swallowed the entire cabin, a direct lightning strike. The right wing was likely hit. The internal fuel tank may have exploded. The fuselage ruptured like paper, and the entire aircraft began to break apart mid-air, torn into pieces, passengers and seats flung into open air as if plucked by the fingers of the storm. Isabelle felt herself ripped from the plane, still strapped into her seat. There was no scream, just wind, sky, and a deafening roar, and then silence. She didn't know how long she'd been unconscious, minutes, hours, a day. When Isabelle opened her eyes, everything was green, but not the soft pastel green of houseplants or gardens. This was something wild, dense, dripping with life, an ocean of leaves and shadows that moved and breathed on its own. She was lying flat on her back. Her vision was blurred. One eye was swollen shut. Her right arm stung sharply, as if glass had been embedded beneath the skin. She couldn't move her shoulder. Every twitch sent lightning bolts of pain down her collarbone. She blinked again, tried to sit up. The world spun. Her ears rang. Somewhere far off, a macaw screeched. Somewhere closer, flies buzzed. Then it hit her. There was no plane, no runway, no metal, no sound of engines, no voice calling out, no mother. Isabelle was still strapped into her row of 3 seats. The others, whoever they were gone. One seat remained beside her, twisted backward and half buried in the jungle floor. The other was missing entirely. The air smelled of earth, wet bark, and rot. Thick humidity pressed against her face like a soaked blanket. Her dress, once clean and sky blue, was now stained with blood, mud, and something sticky she couldn't identify. One shoe had vanished. Her glasses were broken. She was 17 years old, barefoot, concussed, half-blind, and completely, terrifyingly alone. The trees whispered above her, branches creaking, alive with creatures she couldn't see. Somewhere in the distance, something screamed, sharp and animal, followed by a silence that made her stomach clench. Every sound was a threat. Every shadow pulsed. The rainforest was not just a backdrop, it was watching her. She tried to stand, and the world lurched sideways. Pain sliced through her collarbone like lightning. Her legs buckled. She collapsed into the mud, breathing in the sharp, metallic scent of her own blood. Her right arm was hot and swollen. Something had cut deep. She could feel it even if she didn't look. And there was no one, no voices, no wreckage in sight. Just her. She lay still for a long time. Minutes? Hours? Time didn't exist here. There was only before the fall and now. Gradually, the instinct to survive overcame the terror. She recalled her father's advice, etched into her memory like a lifeline. If you get lost, find a river or stream and follow it. Water always leads to people. Summoning every ounce of strength, she pushed herself onto all fours. The mud sucked at her bare hands and knees. Sharp thorns tore at her skin. Her right arm was throbbing and bleeding heavily, but she forced herself forward. Several times she stumbled, twisting her already injured ankle on exposed roots. Pain exploded in her leg, but she bit back the scream. Insects swarmed her wounds, mosquitoes, ants, and flies. She slapped at them frantically, but they kept coming. After crawling nearly 2 miles, she finally heard the faint trickle of water. Weak and exhausted, she reached the edge of a shallow stream, its surface broken by flickering dragonflies. She collapsed beside it, soaked her face, and drank deeply. The water was warm, but fresh enough to not make her sick. She drank until her stomach ached. That night, curled beside the stream, She felt the cold creep through her soaked clothes. She shivered violently but dared not sleep deeply, afraid she might not wake. The following days passed in a blur of pain and desperation. She moved only during daylight, crawling or dragging herself alongside the water. At night, she hid under thick leaves, trying to stay dry and avoid the jungle's predators. Her only sustenance was a small pack of candies she'd miraculously kept intact from the wreckage. Each day, she rationed one piece, sucking slowly to prolong the fleeting sweetness. Once they ran out, she chewed the empty wrappers, just to trick her mind into tasting sugar. Her injuries worsened rapidly. The gash on her arm became infected. Flies landed. During these days, she also struggled with dehydration and fever. She occasionally drank stagnant water, risking illness because no other option existed. She battled exhaustion, hunger, and searing pain that stole her sleep. At one point, Isabelle's foot caught on a hidden root beneath the murky water, and she fell face first into the cold stream. Water rushed into her mouth and nose, and she struggled to keep her head above the surface. Her broken glasses were gone, and the world blurred around her. She coughed violently, gasping for air. The sudden shock left Isabelle shaken and disoriented, but she forced herself to get back on her feet. Her body ached, every movement painful, but she knew stopping wasn't an option. In that moment, fear was overwhelming. Isabelle thought about giving up, about how easy it would be to just let go. But something inside pushed her forward, a stubborn refusal to die here, alone in the jungle. That near drowning was a harsh reminder of how fragile Isabelle's situation was. Survival wasn't guaranteed. Every step was a fight against exhaustion, pain, and despair, and she had no choice but to keep moving. On approximately the 10th day, after what felt like an endless journey through the dense, suffocating jungle, Isabelle's legs gave way beneath her. She stumbled and fell onto a narrow, overgrown path, her body screaming in protest. But then, through the thick canopy, she spotted something unexpected, a small wooden hut, weathered by time and rain, hidden like a secret among the trees. Isabelle's heart pounded as she approached, wary but desperate. The hut was abandoned, its wooden planks creaking softly in the humid breeze. Inside, she found a rusted motorboat tied loosely to the shore, and beside it, a battered canister of gasoline. The sight of the fuel sparked a distant memory, her father's voice, calm and clear, instructing her on a desperate but crucial step: to clean infected wounds with gasoline to kill the maggots. With trembling hands, Isabelle poured the gasoline onto the festering wound on her arm. The pain exploded instantly, a searing white-hot fire burning through her flesh. She screamed, the sound raw and hoarse, echoing through the silent jungle. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the grime and sweat. Determined to survive, she used a broken stick. That night, she barely slept, the pain and adrenaline keeping her awake. But at dawn, salvation came in an unexpected form. 3 local men appeared, their faces etched with disbelief. They had heard the rumors of a survivor, but never truly believed it. A lone woman wandering deep in the Amazon was almost unthinkable. For a moment, they thought Isabelle might be a spirit, a hallucination born of the jungle's myths. But when she spoke, her voice weak but unmistakably real, the men knew she was alive. They offered her food and water, their kindness a balm to her starving body. They cleaned and dressed her wounds as best they could with the limited supplies they had. Then, gently, they helped her into the rusty motorboat. The journey by river was slow and treacherous, but it led them to a small village equipped with a radio transmitter. From there, Isabelle was evacuated by plane to a hospital, a place of bright lights, clean sheets, and doctors who marveled at her survival. Isabelle Kraus had endured 10 days alone in the heart of the Amazon, following a devastating plane crash that claimed 91 lives. She survived broken bones and a severe concussion, infected wounds crawling with maggots, starvation and near dehydration, and the crushing psychological weight of isolation and trauma. Isabelle became the sole survivor of Flight 508. After her rescue, she spent several weeks in the hospital, where doctors fought to save her from multiple injuries and infections. News of her miraculous survival spread around the world, and her story became a symbol of human willpower and resilience. Her father, Dr. Ernst Kraus, had spent all this time desperately searching for his daughter, organizing search parties and refusing to give up hope, even when officials declared that there could be no survivors. When he learned that Isabelle was alive, it was a miracle, though the joy was forever shadowed by the loss of his wife. The trauma of losing her mother and surviving such horror left deep scars on Isabelle, yet despite the psychological wounds, she managed to return to a normal life. Later, she followed in her parents' footsteps, dedicating herself to biology and conservation. She graduated from university, became a zoologist, and devoted her life to scientific work and education. She wrote a book about her experience, and her story inspired documentaries and books. She often gives lectures, speaking about the power of the human spirit, the importance of knowledge about nature, and how one must never give up, even in the most hopeless situations. Her father lived a long life, continuing his scientific work, though he always carried the pain of losing his wife. His relationship with his daughter became even stronger. They were united not only by love, but by the memory of what they had endured. Today, Isabelle lives in Germany, working in science and education. Her story continues to inspire people around the world as an example of incredible resilience, courage, and love for life.